Hello everybody, I'm Matthew, the author of the Undo Meditation and Life Navigation app. And today I'm going to be talking to you about motivation, how to find your motivation, what causes your motivation to be undermined, and also how to sustain or live with a sustainable level of motivation once you have it. I find people are trained or conditioned throughout their life in our society to only be motivated by, or mostly be motivated by, the possibilities of the goal or the achievement or the success in the outside of what they're doing, which is really the external part of our living existence, of our life. So whether it's your relationships, or whether it's your exercise routine, or whether it's your taking care of yourself, or whether it's for your meditation, the motivation that you have for these things is generally motivated by you wanting to achieve something, by the goal, by the achievement that you hope to get. And this is a misunderstanding, actually. This is only looking at one half of your own existence, only one half of what you need to be motivated by. And the motivation that is only driven by the goal tends to draw your focus away from half of what's going on into only half of what's going on. And half of what's going on in any aspect of your life is what's going on inside of you, not just what you're trying to achieve, not just your job and what you're trying to do in your job, not just your relationship and the relationship you're trying to interact with or are interacting in, not just your exercise routine and actually doing that, but what's going on inside of you, what's being processed and developed and made contact with inside of yourself in the process of doing these things. So motivation for life is actually inherently a part of just being yourself in life. But when you shut off to what's going on inside in the effort to force yourself to do what you think you want to do or should be doing on the outside, then you lose touch with a huge portion of your motivation, and in fact you lose touch with what is the real significance or the meaning for yourself behind what it is you're doing in your life, whether it's in your relationship or in your job. The stimulation or the challenges of that are actually putting you in touch with the deeper meaning behind just having the relationship or doing the job, and the deeper meaning which is related to your own self-development through the challenges of doing these things. But because we've been so conditioned into a goal-orientated external achievement or focus on external achievements in our lives, we've been mistaken in this, in that we've overlooked the most important, the most crucial part of a natural form of self-motivation. When we're motivated by other people, the world outside of us, or the goals or what we want to achieve, we're motivated by things which are outside of our control, and things which are therefore, by being reliant on being motivated by these things, if they fluctuate, then we fluctuate. But when we're motivated from within ourselves in connection with what we're doing or trying to achieve, then we're seeing the bigger picture of the real meaning of our life, of the full meaning of our life, or the full significance of our job, or the full significance of our relationship, or the full significance of the exercise that we're doing. So when we're trying to exercise, for example, or be motivated to exercise, that any lack of motivation or any struggle with doing this is not really on the outside. Doing it is just a matter of thinking about it and doing it. The struggle we have is on the inside. And the struggle that we have on the inside is actually with limitations within ourselves that what we're doing on the outside is putting us in contact with. And if we don't understand how these limitations are a very significant and very important part of what we're doing on the outside, then we just start to react to these limitations and become upset with ourselves when those limitations occur. So we've taught to, in fact, be less interested in what's going on inside of ourselves and more interested in what we can achieve outside of ourselves, causing a type of separation between our inside world and our outside world, and a confusion about what's really going on when we feel as though we've lost motivation or when we feel we don't have enough motivation. So let's say what you want to do, you can't do. You want to go to the gym, but you find yourself not being able to go to the gym. You want to get involved in your work with full enthusiasm, but you find yourself unable to. Or you want to interact with your partner, but you find yourself holding back, withdrawn and unable to. Now, this feeling that it's bringing up for you of being unable to is a part of you and therefore a part of everything you do. You can't really separate that from what you're doing. It's part of you and part of what you're doing. And to learn that this is actually the most significant in keeping your motivation consistent. Firstly, getting your motivation, but keeping it consistent, is your ability to be processing the challenges to your personal self. Whatever you're doing is challenging whatever is going on inside of you. And it's pushing you beyond boundaries that you have actually created inside of yourself by keeping your inner self separate to your outer self, by creating a type of artificial separation between what's going on inside of you and what you're doing on the outside. Misunderstanding that what you're doing on the outside is really an expression of what you are on the inside. And when what you are on the inside is resisting getting involved with what you're doing on the outside, this is where you start to doubt yourself, question yourself, or lose your motivation for what you're doing. Now, why do we lose motivation for what we're doing when what's inside of us is struggling to continue doing or be involved in what we're doing on the outside or trying to achieve on the outside? The reason actually is because of fear. We're actually frightened of, or get nervous or hesitant about what the outside challenge is putting us in contact with inside and about ourselves. Inside and about ourselves is our limitations in doing what we're doing. We want to exercise and we come up against a struggle in exercising some days. And in coming up against a struggle in exercising, I don't want to exercise then. And really the exercise or the activity is actually what we need in order to put us in touch with our limitations around that. And by continuing with the exercise, but according to the limitations or the struggle we're having inside, not overriding that, but bringing that to the action, bringing that to the interaction, and letting that determine how you're going with what you're doing on the outside is perfectly fine. In fact, it's much more realistic because how you're going on the inside is the fact. How you want it to be on the outside, that may be your goal, that may be your desire. But when you don't have the motivation or don't have, you're limited by something inside of yourself in trying to achieve that goal, achieve that activity on the outside, then the internal is in conflict with the external. And by thinking I must achieve what I want to achieve on the outside without taking into consideration how you're going on the inside, you're putting a pressure on yourself that's unrealistic and unsustainable. Whereas when you turn that around and you look at what's going on, you make contact with what's going on the inside of you and include that in what you're doing on the outside, then what you'll find is that they will gradually line up. But you need to determine what you're doing on the outside by how you are on the inside, not the other way around. This doesn't mean if you're feeling unmotivated that you don't still do what you've got to do, but you do what you've got to do, including the feeling of being unmotivated or the feeling of unmotivation itself. By including the feeling of unmotivation itself whilst doing the activity or interacting with your life on the outside, what you're actually doing is triggering and allowing a process of development, of personal development within yourself. Now, life is always challenging us, and when we're only interested in what we can do or achieve, we want to override what we see as our limitations and our inability to do those things, overlooking that actually the fact is how we are and who we are, and that life is really just challenging those. Every part of our life on the outside is just challenging and pushing us to evolve, beyond the limitations that we already have within ourselves from whatever we've learned or done in our life or experienced in our life. And to evolve beyond those limitations is achieved or comes about through not avoiding those limitations, suppressing them and trying to push beyond them, but including the feeling of those limitations in what we're doing and adjusting what we're doing to allow those limitations within ourselves or those resistances in ourselves or those fears within ourselves to be a part of what we're doing, to be present within us whilst we're doing what we're doing. And in this, what happens is we're coming into contact with our resistance to life, with our pain, with the effects that life has had on us, with our limiting views of ourselves. Yet we continue to do the things we're trying to do whilst feeling this internal struggle going on, but allowing that internal struggle to be there. And this internal struggle, in fact, starts to become far more interesting because this is the developmental process. And in some ways, this is the deeper meaning behind what we're doing and why we're doing the things we're doing in our life. And when we get in touch with where we're coming from inside of ourselves, the deeper meaning driving behind, within ourselves, driving the action on the outside, when we actually get in touch with that inside of ourselves as how it feels to be ourselves in doing the action, then we get in touch with where we're really coming from and why we're really doing what it is we're doing. And why we're really doing what it is we're doing is it's a challenge, it's a development, and it's an opportunity to express ourselves in our life, but also develop and express ourselves in ways we haven't done before. So if we've had a tendency not to take very good care of ourselves and we decided we'd really like to be able to do this, but we have habits which conflict with what we want to do. Let's say I want to eat a better way and I have the knowledge to eat a better way, but I have internally the habit to eat in a way that's unhealthy for me. So this internal habit to eat in a way that's unhealthy for me is there. So I struggle. I have a conflict of interest. I have the thing I want to do on the outside, being I want to eat healthily, and I have the habit, what I think I want to do on the inside, which is to eat unhealthily. So in this case, what we have is we have two desires going on at the same time. We want two opposing things at once. Or we want to be slim, or we want to be strong, or we want to be fit, but we don't want to exercise. When we have the two conflicting desires going on at the same time, bringing those two desires together resolves the problem. And how do we bring those two desires together? When we want one thing on the inside but another thing on the outside, we struggle. And what tends to happen is the most uncomfortable part of it for us, the limitations that are already within ourselves, the detrimental behaviours or the undermining feelings inside of ourselves that we find prevent us from doing the thing we want to do in our life. These feelings need to be allowed to be there and brought into our life. when we bring them into any aspect of our life that they're connected to, that they're related to, how we do this is don't try and be positive and motivated. Be the way you actually are, and understand that by being the way I am, let's say I want to go to the gym and exercise, but I'm holding back because I have what I think is a laziness or a resistance to it. Being sensitive to that resistance, being sensitive to that holding back within yourself, yet going ahead and doing what you want to do on the outside anyway, brings those two together. And you'll feel it a struggle. You'll feel a struggle inside in doing the thing. But in feeling the struggle, you will actually process that resistance. You'll get past that struggle. You'll get past that struggle and bring how you're feeling and resisting on the inside into contact with what you're doing and achieving on the outside. And this brings about a change, a development within yourself that over time you'll find this becomes the most interesting aspect of what you're doing. So the most interesting part of running a business or doing your job is not necessarily just what you're doing or achieving or the money you're earning or the success you're having on the outside. This is what we've been taught to think. This is how we've been trained to think in our culture. And it's a very limited perception of life. Yeah, to always just see that I must be motivated by the goal outside of me to try and achieve that is completely overlooking the motivation for what is it showing you and helping you develop, get in contact with and develop within yourself as a human being. And that this aspect of us has been greatly overlooked. This aspect of what we're really interested in, actually, is who and how we are as an individual. And it is the things that we do in our life that really show this up inside of ourselves. And when it does, when this approach is correct, the approach of combining what you are on the inside, however that happens to be, with doing what you are doing on the outside, when this approach is correct, of combining those two, so you're now operating as a whole person rather than just half the person on the outside trying to force themselves to achieve their goal, or half the person on the inside pulling away from life and resisting life and not doing anything that you want to do. Bringing up the question is, why is it that we can't do the things we want to do? Because we are frightened of the feelings or the sensations or the limitations inside of ourselves that doing the things we want to do put us in contact with. Just having the desire to do the things we want to do puts us in contact with our resistance or our unconfidence to do those things. Now, by being in contact with that, yet continuing to do those things that we want to do in our life, is how we actually overcome these limitations. It's how we process and evolve and develop through life. A little example. I was talking to a friend the other day, a male friend. In fact, when I think about it, there's some female friends and male friends I have this conversation with. And they say, I'm so interested in this particular man. Single people interested in meeting this man or interested in meeting this woman. But I'm not going to ask her out. They want to ask her out. They want to be involved. They want to form a relationship. But why aren't they going to ask her out? What's holding them back from asking that person out? Is it culture? Is it belief systems? No. They're frightened of rejection. They're frightened of what they might experience if they don't get the response they want. So this process of asking a person out, or this process of living their life as is, I'm interested in this person, my goal is to meet this person or contact this person, have a relationship with this person. This is what I'd like, but it doesn't. That's only the fantasy right now because it's not there yet. But because of the disturbance or the fear that it brings to them to be rejected, to not achieve that goal, they don't even try. Completely overlooking that interaction is not, and life is not just about achieving the goal. It's the process of becoming involved in that interaction, becoming involved in that aspect of life, however it turns out, in the sense of whether they reject you or accept your invitation to go out with them. However it turns out, it puts you in touch with yourself in a way that you won't get in touch with unless you get involved, unless you act out what you want to do. And by acting out what you want to do and, let's say, asking that person out, whether you get rejected or not, you're going to be put in touch with your own insecurities around this. So what are these insecurities? Other than ideas about yourself that you've learned from other people and from social concepts throughout your life. What does it matter whether that person accepts you asking them out or not? You're defining yourself and your value based on whether that person likes you or not. But it's not defining you whether they like you or not. It's defining whether they like you or not. Yeah, there's nothing personal. What defines you is what you are put in touch with in yourself. And in getting in touch with what you're experiencing within yourself, then the deeper meaning of this interaction is revealed. And the deeper meaning of this interaction is that you get to understand yourself in a way that you never understood yourself before. But not only that, by going through with the action, you get in contact with the deeper feelings of insecurity or inabilities that you have, or inadequacies that you view yourself having. You get in contact with these deeper feelings in such a way that you can process these, in such a way that you can develop and evolve as an individual, thereby including the deeper meaning of life beyond just the thing you want to achieve, the goal you want to achieve, this achievement orientated and rather superficial way of approaching life causes us to overlook the deeper meaning that life is a perpetual development beyond, for you, beyond whatever it is, beyond whatever it is that you find uncomfortable or most frightening about or within yourself. So I hope that was a little bit helpful, but understand that motivation is a natural state. It's not something your lack of motivation, you're feeling unmotivated in any area of your life is primarily because you've lost touch with that within yourself. So getting in touch with that in yourself, rather than avoiding those facts about yourself and feeling those as they are within you, however that happens to feel, will require that you don't judge yourself in that condition, but appreciate that being in that condition that you're in, however that happens to be, however that happens to feel, is actually going to, in feeling it, that's actually going to trigger it to resolve itself, to process. And change going on inside of you will not come about through you trying to make it change. It will only come about through you getting in touch with what it is you want to change, and feeling that and living with that and learning from that all about yourself in the condition, by being with that condition, in that condition, whilst you just gently get on with your life, not putting huge demands on yourself to achieve any sort of state on the outside or any sort of goal on the outside. This is a complete imbalance. You're forgetting about the development and the processing and the healing of yourself on the inside at whatever pace that can go, whilst you are staying in touch with that and just doing whatever it is you want to do in your life. Thanks very much. See you for now.